Welcome everyone to Epic Work Item Migration Working Group Sync. It's 2nd of November, and we have a couple of updates since last week, so feel free to read it through. And let's start straight ahead with the issue-specific discussions. So I think the first item is already answered by Jan, but in case anyone wants to chime in or elaborate, the question here was that if we want to set up data sync between legacy epics and work items, especially the core part of the data like title, description, and state and confidentiality, can can this begin without causing these copied epics to show up in places where they shouldn't? And Jan mentioned that we can probably do it by making everything behind feature flag and run it only in select groups. But I was wondering that in case we plan to do it as a background migration for GitLab or table, for instance, then how will it look like? So yeah, so opening up for discussion on this one. Yeah, and you want to expand on what you suggested?
So I thought that during the implementation phase of the migration, all of this stuff would be behind flag. So we wouldn't enable this for GitLab org group, as you mentioned, and we would enable this feature flag for this bigger group when we are sure that it's ready for, I mean, the whole synchronization process is ready. So at that point, we would enable it for others. Perhaps it would be before we agree that we can backfill these synchronized work items records for also existing epics. So at that point, I think it would make sense to enable this for other groups. But I would expect that most of the implementation of this migration would happen behind feature flag.
So in instances where say data is already copied for select groups, but the flag is disabled, does it mean that legacy all the or the work item queries still do not bring up this new records which are added? So what I'm so in other words, for instance, in a given group, if we have the table data already copied from legacy epics table to work items table, but the flag remains disabled after the syncing is done, what happens when we fetch, say, group level work items of that particular group? Does it include epics as well, which were copied because the flag is not enabled, or even the data won't be showing up? Like, are we doing any form of filtration there?
Yeah, I think that we don't. So I think we should filter out epic items in UI. It can be done easily by extending the array of types we filter out. On API level, these wouldn't be filtered out. The assumption or the idea with having this behind feature flag is that there wouldn't be any production epics created because it wouldn't be enabled for most of the customers or all customers. So, but yeah, once we would backfill this, well, it would make sense to enable the flag before backfilling, because if we would backfill first, then it would get out of sync if the feature flag wouldn't be enabled. So it would make sense to enable the flag. Then since that moment, it would start showing up in API or not in UI, but I don't know if there are some other places than API where we show all items. But it would be showing up only newly created epics. And when we would trigger the backfilling, it would start showing also backfilled work item epics.
Okay. And yeah, so Amanda has a question. So unless anyone wants to add to that discussion, we can move on to next item on the issue specific discussion.
I'll put it in the agenda, sorry, afterwards. But yeah, I think like RSS feeds and things like that, issues, webhooks and stuff, like they do tend to show up in places elsewhere other than just the UI and the APIs. The question is like, do we care? And did we care when we did requirements? I don't know.
Also important export, they'll use this.
Yeah, import export as well. It's a good one.
Is this synchronization going to be back and forth? Like when you added a work item description, you'll sync it back to the legacy epic and the other way around? Is that the intention?
So we thought that it would make sense to disable allowing creation of epics from issue side to avoid this bidirectional synchronization. So users could still create epics only through the legacy API until we have everything ready on work item side.
Okay, but then once, so you've, like, let's say we've created, like we have the legacy epics, we create the work item correspondence of that epic, right? And then when the user edits the work item epic, does that get back synced up into the description of the legacy epic, right?
So once user would be able to create work item epic, then yes, but it would make sense to postpone this as far as possible. So this
Yeah,
is
so
what
I was
meant.
wondering, like, do we really need to do this synchronization? So like, I know that this was discussed some meeting ago, but like my question is, can we say anyone who wants to onboard from now on and start using plan and epics, they will use work item epics? Like we can set a date, I don't know, starting next quarter or something like that, right? So then we don't have to do all of this synchronization, and the legacy people will have to, if they want, they can still use the legacy epics, but once they are ready to move, to migrate, and all the feature set that has the work item epics, they'll just do a migration, a full migration, and start using that. They don't have to jump right off, but that I feel like that's a much easier path to do this migration rather than having this back and forth sync. I think we're opening ourselves to a lot of desynchronizations and bugs and things like that.
Well, so that's also the problem with not having the bi-directional sync, in that if we put the creation of the work item epic behind a feature flag, we're not going to be able to turn on that feature flag until all of the views, like the roadmap view that use epics, are using the work item API.
Yeah, so we need to implement all the features anyway on the work items. So like, why not stop adding stuff to the epics and do a lot of like this feature implementation on the work items side? And then again, the customer can decide, because like I would think that a lot of customers, for instance, don't even need the dates inheritance. Like I was looking in the database, there are just like, I don't know, 20% that use the inheritance of the dates. So they may want to migrate to work items even before that. Maybe some customers don't like the roadmap, so they can migrate earlier before we have the roadmap on the work items and so on. But that's the customer decision. When do they want to migrate from the legacy into the work items, given all of the restrictions or the features that we have and features that we don't have? We just need to keep a good documentation on what we have and what we don't have. but ultimately the decision will be on the customer. And then what we need to have is a migration script or a migration button or whatever you need to have to move them to the work items, and use that. And then if you don't like, you can still keep the legacy ones, but you should not expect it to be synced. And then if you don't like the work items, just delete them all and do a migration later again if you don't like them. But I don't know. That's how I see it. I think that's kind of an easier and cleaner way to do that than having a lot of ifs and else's in the code and having all of these things. Oh, we forgot to sync back the labels. Oh, we forgot to sync up the linked items. Oh, we forgot to sync that, and then the URLs are not working because I don't know, something happened and things like that.
Yeah, so there's been a few discussions on this, and we can link the issues where they happened in. I think the main, yeah, I mean, ideally we don't have to worry about the sync or anything, but the risk to not having the sync is that we're not able to fully convert from legacy epics to work items. I mean, I don't know if we have a timeline for doing things like roadmaps and all the views we would need to finish, but we're looking at least a few quarters work to get all of those views done. So adding the sync was kind of seen as a way that we can start the migration and start people on epics as work items within even a quarter.
I think with the syncing, we are actually putting ourselves in a corner where we need to have the exact one-on-one parity between legacy and work items. And with the just migrate to the new implementation, you're like, you have what you have. So the decision is not in our court anymore to maintain all of these bi-directional things and like one-on-one parity. But this is the new way that we're doing work items. Again, this is probably more of a product decision than anything. So if that's what we decided, that we need to do this bi-directional, I'm just saying that it may be harder than what we expect.
But we still have to. Sorry, Amanda, go on.
No, I was just going to say, from a product perspective, we have several things we need to support: roadmaps, boards, REST API. How we do that in the time frame that we have, we're open to different ways. So we're not dictating bi-directional support. We're just dictating that we need to be able to support those things, and we need to land migration as quickly as possible. So that's kind of
yeah, but there is a product decision in that, like, what Alexandru would be proposing would be a different experience for the user, a product and UX decision, sorry, in that, like, in Alexandru's proposal, it would be a one-time thing for the user. Like, they would press a button or whatever, or we would hit a certain date, and from then on they would be dealing with the work item object, even if we could make it work with all of their previous all the other views like roadmaps and lists and so on. Under this proposal with bidirectional syncing, they never know. Basically, they have both indefinitely until we decide, it's all being done with work. In other words, they're both completely interoperable. Both what Alexandru's proposing, they're not. You would either have to import everything in one go, or you would start a new object from scratch. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess if with that recommendation, I don't see how things like the REST API would still be functional.
We'd have to figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
ideally. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. If I understood Alexandru's idea correctly, the thing is that the epic work item would become just completely separate. So customers would have to first update all their tooling, which uses an API, to migrate to using the work item API to work with Epic entities, and basically abandon this Epic REST API, and then they can switch this migration, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, if that's the case, that's not desired. We did explore that path, and we said that was not sufficient, and that's why we started the REST API GraphQL wrapper, right? So that we could get to a place where the user didn't have to abandon their REST API, but we could move forward on work items, and that became too costly from a time perspective. And so, we're back to the bidirectional thing.
Okay.
So one challenge I do see with bidirectional syncing is especially hierarchy widget and supporting that in the legacy Epic. So for instance, if someone is changing parent-child relationship in the hierarchy widget of work items view, when with the Epic work item types, how does that data translate into the legacy views where the linking is still dependent on the Epic table? And would that be feasible from performance perspective to make sure that relationships across and as well as permissions and everything works exactly the same in both the places where user changes these values from UI on work items view, but they're expecting that data to be available via REST API, which is powered by our legacy table?
I thought that we would hide these Epic items in UIs.
No, on
So-
UI we would certainly hide, but what about the APIs with which users are accessing this information?
Yeah, I think that it would make sense to not allow these Epic changes through work item API as long as possible. So we keep the one direction synchronization for as long as possible, so we don't have to do the other opposite direction update.
Because for simpler widgets, it may still be easier to manage. But yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, so I mean, for simpler widgets, it still is easier, I presume, with having a two-way syncing. But it is only for complex widgets where it gets trickier, where you have work items model which has relationship and everything. And we are even thinking about adding additional functionality to linked work items, for example, like reordering, which is the next item in the discussion. So I'm wondering that if we go with this two-way syncing, uh, my main concern is that how these complex widgets are going to behave from the API perspective, where user change some values in the hierarchy widget from our front end, and then they are accessing exact same data via our API, and they are hoping that they are getting exact same data in the API.
Yeah, it's just like holistically, we have a different data structure for the work items and a very different data structure for the epics. And now we want to make it sync. So there is a lot of juggling and coordination to be done in the code, which is just going to be a nightmare and a lot of bugs. I can sign up for that. Like, there is no way around that. So like the more we can separate the two, the better for everyone, for customers including, because they will experience less bugs. And I'll have a question for Amanda about the APIs not changing. I'd be very curious about customers and what exactly do they use that APIs and what do they do in the APIs? And is there a way for us to either make the switch swift for them to the new API, or maybe address some of the concerns that they have around the Epic APIs? I'll look into that. If we have more details about the customers that want to look at, like, don't want the APIs changing because they have infrastructure around that, it'll be nice to be looking into more details around that and see how we can maybe address that separately.
Yeah, the REST API, that would be a much larger research project that I don't think we have time for in terms of the Epic migration. We know from a number of customers that they are not willing to make the change to GraphQL anytime soon. And so we would essentially be breaking their workflows. I don't think that it's a never question, but I think it's with plenty of notification and timing, and we need to really understand the impact to customers in order to do that. So it's just something that we don't have time to be able to invest in before Epic migration, unfortunately.
Yeah, but the migration would not be from REST into GraphQL. The migration would be from Epic REST into the issues or work items REST API, basically. So it will not be a different technology. It will be just accessing different endpoints and things like that. So it's
okay.
not.
Okay, I don't have an answer for that because I've never posed that to customers before. My gut would tell me that would be less abrasive because it was the technology thing that I think that they were having troubles with. But that said, it's still like upending their workflows and having to make changes with a limited amount of time.
Yeah, so what I was suggesting originally is like, we can continuously support the legacy epics as they are, right? We just like for customers that cannot migrate because of the APIs, because of the, I don't know, other features that are not yet supported in the work items, they will have to keep the legacy product, the legacy epics, and continue with that. But that would not stop us from moving on much faster with the work items APIs. And then we can work on a customer per customer basis and help them migrate into work items, either by helping them with the APIs or, because like, again, I don't know how many customers there are like in this situation, how big they are, like how big of a challenge that is, and so on. But then again, I think this bidirectional synchronization sounds nice and like very easy and like transparent, but it's not going to be very easy to implement. That's my concern, my big concern there, and it will slow down us a lot. But if I'm not correct, I'm coming down in as a someone new in here, then yeah, let me know. I'll back off.
So
I think yeah. there are two things, Alexander. One is bidirectional sync, but that shouldn't really stick around for a long time because it's very costly. We should, as soon as we implement bidirectional sync, in my opinion, start to move to method delegation from the legacy epic and delegate increasingly more and more methods to the work item object until the remaining legacy epic still does all the things it used to do, but it does it by delegating the methods to the work item object. Then we don't need any more syncing except just UID, which doesn't change anyway. At that point, then it's a lot less costly. We can maintain that for a very long time. The Epic's API doesn't have to change. We can't change it anyway because you can't make breaking changes to the REST API. So at that point, like we can live with that situation for a long time. But at some point, we could move the Epic's API to simply consume the work items table, right, instead of the Epic's table. And then for customers who want the extra features that we're building, they need to move to the new work items REST API, which is really just presumably changing a few things. Like, does that make sense?
It does. It's just like same thing that Kushal said. I'm not sure at which point we start breaking the bidirectional and which point we just say, yeah, we're not going to do this. Because like in the like child relationships and all that stuff, if you start combining, that will be difficult to make sure you really sync up everything. And that's all even before any kind of customization. Like I'm not adding customization into the game because that is a.
Are we aligned with the either doing no sync or bidirectional sync? Or Jan, I think you're proposing we just do one-way sync, and is that right, or am I not understanding that properly?
Yeah, so I would expect that for the whole time we are working on preparing the synchronization, we do only one direction sync from legacy epic to work item record. And then when we are sure that this syncing works as expected for the whole Epic resource or entity, then we enable this also in work item API, and we start doing the synchronization also in the opposite direction if needed. But it should be basically the last step when we are ready to basically use the epics also from work item API or work item side of things. And as John mentioned, I would expect that from that point, we start working on basically delegating everything from Epic resource to the work item resource. So we get to the point when Epic is really just a very thin proxy delegating everything to work item resource.
I think you're saying if we do this right, we can avoid a whole bunch of work, right? To maintain or even implement bidirectional sync. Is that right?
Yeah, so it depends how long we are able to. So my assumption is that we would not allow any work item epic changes from work item side. If we are able to do it for the whole migration phase, then we wouldn't need synchronization to the epic record. But there still might be some situations like you move some, I don't know. I don't know if it's possible to keep it one direction all the time, or if some later phase we would need second bidirection too. I don't know.
Can we take it away? And even I would even be up for helping on that. If we could get an issue for it, Jan, and we could look into that and see, is there a path we can go where we don't have to do bidirectional sync at all? And just because I think you're onto something there, but we need to like test the idea from all directions.
There is a path in where we basically sync everything from legacy Epic into work items, and then after we do some, I don't know, internal testing and dogfooding and so on, when we are very, very confident, we say, well, from now on, everyone moves on to work items, because we know that's how you all need to work, right? Because otherwise the customer moves and says, well, I don't like the UI, I don't like this, I don't like that, I want to move back to using what we used to use. And that may not be from that may be a UI perspective, or that may be, I don't know, some API bugs and things like that. I don't think there is a fast way to just switch everyone one way and allow them to have both things. Everyone is going to have requirements and complaints and so on, because it's a complex system. But yeah, this is why I was like thinking, if we can keep the two systems separate and let customers try and say, yeah, I'm good enough with the new system. Yeah, I know it's lacking this and this and that, but it's good enough for me to accomplish the job, or it's better in some use cases and lacking some of the features that are coming on. That's kind of the way to move on to that and not have to go back and forth. But I also can see like it's a bit more painful for the customers to have to make that decision, especially the bigger ones.
Yeah, I agree. It would be simple. My concern would be not that they need to make a decision at some point, but they actually need to update all their tooling from one API to the other, and they are not able. Well, and they need to make a switch at some point during migration, which would be basically downtime migration, because during the migration itself, they wouldn't know what to use, what API. So it would mean some kind of outage or not very smooth migration on their side, as they need to switch to using different API. But if that would be acceptable, then that's an option too.
Sounds like that's not an option from the product perspective. So I guess we just move on with seeing how we can do this syncing this as smooth as possible. I'm wondering if we can limit the blast radius of this by like onboarding new customers from a given starting date into work items only and things like that. So can we consider that at least? Because again, this is not going to be 1 or 2 quarters type of thing. It's going to be quite a while, I would assume. So like when we can try and put a stop to using the legacy, at least for newcomers or for new people that are on board into plan, that will limit the amount of work we need to do. Would you agree?
Sorry, can you clarify the timing you just quoted? When you say it's going to be more than a few quarters, what do you mean is going to be more than a few quarters?
To have all customers migrated to work items.
All customers, meaning epics and issues, or just epics?
All customers, meaning like all self-managed customers and things like that, have them migrated in like a couple quarters onto using only work items.
Well, that's different from having it available for everyone. So, you know, I'm not sure we've fully explored that idea of what we can cut out from bidirectional sync. So I can see even like Donald's like typing his understanding out, and I don't understand it either. So like, can we take an issue, like, and anyone who wants to be part of it, like, just jump in and let's see if, like, we should be able to join this meeting next week and have explored. I think there's 2 or 3 different ideas there. We should road test each idea and see which gets us to the objective more quickly, like, and have an idea for next week. And then, like, because that decision around you know, should we click to migrate has come up again, like, we need to sort of just make these decisions and then move on with the implementation as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and create a spike and mention everyone who participated in this one.
Shall I take that since I put my head up?
Yeah, sure.
Off the PowerPoint.
Sure. Yep.
It's my own damn fault.
Yep, please ping me in because I was the one to roll it out.
The second one is around reordering and particularly around data sync, but not as complex. So the question is around in linked work items. We are planning to add support for reordering, similar to what we have in hierarchy widget. Now the question is, do we need to have relative positioning column added here in case of work items? And also, would it make sense to have this column added after the migration is over or before that? I think, Eugenia, you may want to expand based on the discussion we had earlier today.
Yes, I forgot to write it down. But basically, yes, we're going to need new columns for the sorting, for the relative position. But I don't think we need to do it before the migration. If I remember right, we didn't have to backfill these columns. Because if it has a new default value, it means that the position is the top of the list. And once another item is reordered, then the items next to it will populate this column as well. So I will look more into it, but I don't think it's something we need to look into before the Epics migration.
Okay. And last one is around exporting and importing. So I think this is one of the feature proposal, or rather a parity thing that we need to address. So given that we have introduced work items at a group level now, and we have epics available at a group level already, exporting epics on a group level exports this CSV, which I think contains project information or namespace information. Is this something that work items support today, or how is it going to work in case we were to implement? Will it be possible to add this information in during the export? Yeah, and you may want to verbalize in case.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we could just ignore all work item epics during import and export, as long as it's not it's only synchronized object and it's not a single source of truth, and start importing and exporting it once we decide that that the single source of truth is the synchronized work item epic. But it will be tricky then if we want to make the work item resource single source of truth iteratively for selective widgets one by one. So if we would decide that we delegate each widget or each epic attribute to corresponding widget iteratively, then we would need to import export these work items since we start using this work item for the first widget, I guess. But maybe for now, we can ignore them in import export.
Okay, so we are close to time. I think we have one action item already from this meeting, and I think I'm glad that we touched upon the possibility of thinking about whether we really need to have bidirectional syncing. So yeah. Anything else we want to discuss before we call it a day?
How high in priority is the export import work items at the group level?
So it is not a priority, but rather a feature addition that we need to think about. So right now at a group level, there is no way to export the epics. But for issues, certainly there is this requirement where if you have a group level epic. But yeah, from the product perspective, Amanda can elaborate.
No, you're right there. This would be work that we would be doing for issue parity, and we'd like to get started on it soon because it is quite involved. I've linked to the epic in case of reference.
All right, so we are at time, and we have an issue which we can use to discuss for the two-way syncing. And yep, thanks a lot, everyone, and see you next week.